This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I'm Dead Pallet, inventor of the self-inflating toilet. Today we're taking a look at Day of the Shadow. Let's not dilly-dally and get right into it. Have you heard of The Blob? It's a horror film from the 50s, remade in the 80s, about a moving pink blob that ate people through its skin and dissolving them, growing larger and larger. You might be wondering why the hell I brought it up. Well, the being I encountered was like the blob. You'll see. Well, I like the way that this is started out because when you appropriate an older piece of horror, or a more unrealistic one, it can be a very realistic thing because our schema, our way of viewing the world, is often compared to other things. So using something like the blob and saying, I encountered something like that, and then trying to make that sort of idea more realistic, that is interesting and cool, and I hope that this goes in a good direction. Let's keep reading. As all cliched horror stories start out, it happened to be in a dark and it happened to be in a dark and stormy night with a microburst taking care of the lack of light. I had a generator, but foolishly decided to not waste it. I didn't have candles either, so the only light I had was the occasional flashes of lightning. So me not being able to read that is due to it being improper grammar. I happened to be in a dark and stormy night. You mean to say, it happened to be a dark and stormy night anyway. As I curled up in my bed, yet another classic horror cliche, hoping to enjoy the constant pitter-patter of rain slowly edging me to sleep, I did happen to notice some shadows caused by the lightning to be a bit longer than usual. Thoughts of monsters and shit went through my mind, though of course I ignored it, as the human does when confronted with scariness. I began noticing more things: pipes banging, odd noises, and objects' slight movement. As the human does? It sounds like this is being written by some sort of alien creature, like as the human does when confronted with scariness. Also, I like that it's talking about edging while trying to go to sleep. Who doesn't do that? You know what I mean? Anyway, nothing really creeped me out until I heard the strange noise that really couldn't be explained. It sounded like someone's stomach rumbling, only imagine it sounded more like a moan and not in your stomach. Like I said, to explain it, I'd have to go descriptive on your ass. And to waste time on shit like that isn't my intent. I kind of like the attitude that we're getting from our narrator here. I wish that it was present a little earlier in the story, and I hope that they continue on with this kind of attitude. What made this noise worse than just a few bangs in the night was that it was constant. Not a constant sound, though, as it faded, then rose in volume yet again. It more irritated me than anything, but of course, I just rationalized it. Now, I'm not going to say it was the worst mistake I've ever made, because I'm actually in a pretty good situation right now because of the fucker. I got up to go to the bathroom, did my business, and was about to climb back into bed when I saw it sleeping in it. That meant one of three things. Either I was high/hallucinating, dead, or in some really stupid nightmare. I decided to take nightmare. Hello, I said. Might as well follow along with and get this over with. We're in a fucking dream, you know. Just scare me and be done with this. This is unrealistic. No one ever talks like that, like they're in a dream. Has anyone ever done that? That's something people do in fucking cartoons and shit. That's not real. Then the doppelganger in the bed opened its eyes and snapped its head. A loud cracking resonated. I've seen and never been afraid of jump scares, but I was a little freaked out by the next snap. Also, the eyes of my clone were pitch black, no life within them. And by black, I mean everything was black. Iris, pupil, even the outsides of its eyes were black. Man, we're dealing with a lot of black eyes as of late. It's weird that in this paragraph they decided to mention that it's a doppelganger and not before that, when they said that they saw it in the bed, but anyway. Then my clone began melting into this black gooey shit. I wouldn't be scared except that his entire body, except for his head, began melting. Another thing, it seemed like, at its touch, the bed was being sucked into this thing. I kept telling myself it was a nightmare. It's a nightmare. But when you have a pile of black shit eating away at your bed while a black tentacle slowly lifts your clone face up and your clone face has black eyeballs, my God, that was a mouthful. It's kind of freaky, but I held my ground all the same. Its head, with still lifeless eyes, was cocked as if saying, "You scared, bro?" So nothing about this scenario is putting me in there. And it's not just that it's not realistic, it's that I can't imagine myself in this scenario. It's not a very visceral situation. It feels so detached. It feels like our narrator isn't scared or traumatized by this. Like, there are stories that have comedy in them and a narrator that is very tongue-in-cheek, but take themselves seriously and are using humor to kind of diffuse the horror. This narrator doesn't seem to be doing that. They're just kind of throwing in jokes to be funny, and the "you scared bro" thing is kind of childish, I think. Yeah, I don't think there's much to that. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. Anyway, then what it did next really creeped me out. Don't say that. Come on. You're having this weird melting blob thing, and now you're starting to get creeped out? Come on. It became me again, while I could hear several lovely plopping sounds, only this time its hand was completely black. It placed its black hand on the bed. I heard this loud, slurping sound, and the bed, already half gone, was sucked into the creature. Grinning at me, it revealed a toothless mouth and a long black floppy tongue. It was at this point I began to back away, fearing for my anus. No, I just threw that last part in there. The creature's fingers extended, and I became fearful for my anus. No, becoming black and slimy, shooting themselves at lightning speed towards my bedstand. The slime engulfed it, and the fingers turned back into the doppelganger. Its grin became wider, to the point where it divided its face in half by a thick line of black. What? Anyway, it seemed to say that it could get me anywhere. Okay, then why didn't it? I get the feeling that that's not going to be explained. Anyway. It says, becoming black and slimy, referring to its finger. I thought it was entirely black and slimy. Or wasn't it? I'm confused. This is just weird. I prayed for my dog to go to heaven today. Poor little guy had been woken by all this commotion and ran into my room, yapping loudly. This drew the creature's attention. Snap, sucking noise, gulp, and the pup was no more. Man, you must not have cared for your dog very much if you're not upset about that. Come on. I took the opportunity to begin running, specifically for the icebox. You know what? I'm gonna back off for a second. Your dog got eaten by a monster, and you're not at all perturbed by that. That is not a matter of a story being realistic, in the sense of the kind of stories that I like. That is a story not being at all realistic. Like, the suspension of disbelief is like shattered into a million pieces. Come on. People care about their dogs. Anyway. Well, some people do. Some people leave their dogs out in the pouring rain. And anyway, I had seen the blob, and they had a lame-ass idea of using ice against, and I had the lame-ass idea of using ice against this similar creature. I could hear it the sucking noises, now seemingly angry, coming from behind me. But eventually I reached the icebox, right next to the generator for convenience. I reached in, grabbed a cold cube, and lobbed it at the fucker. The cube bounced off of it. Okay, at this point I'm starting to wonder, like, trying to put myself in the situation. Who is this person? Who is our narrator? I have no idea. What situation are they in? Are they in a rural area, suburban? They're in an English-speaking country. Like, I want a lot more information. Do they live alone with just the dog? Or what are neighbors doing? Anyway. In my despair, I wondered how that could make any sense. This thing could consume both biological and non-biological forms, so why didn't ice bounce off of it? Things seemed to slow down as I tried to go through every scientific explanation for this. Could it just be that the thing sucks up what it wants to and doesn't suck up what it doesn't want to? And maybe it has nothing to do with biology versus non-biological stuff? Anyway. I decided option 2, turn on the generator. Lights turned on throughout the house, not immediately, but quickly enough to see clearly what was coming at me. The doppelganger of myself, with veins of black rippling through it, faces, some human, and some animal also rippling through it. Though, I noticed one thing about it. All sorts of animals were in there, but leeches, dead of course, hung from the black parts of its skin. So is it The Thing from John Carpenter's The Thing? But black for diversity? Anyway, this meant it clearly had foreign chemical structure, probably not known by anything on this planet. So, if that meant nothing on this planet could stand against it, I grabbed a nearby metal bar. I think it might have been part of a basketball hoop I was thinking of setting up near the generator. I don't get it either, as I felt the coldness of the creature's melted arm on my skin. I am having trouble understanding this narrator. Anyway, but before it could suck me in, I smashed the bar against the generator. Sparks flew from where I hit it like a football player's wife. I hit it again, hard. I think that if you're going to use a somewhat controversial phrasing like hit it like a football player's wife, that maybe you want to have some colorful language somewhere else. This is the only, offensive thing that's been brought up so far, and it's one of the few metaphors or similes that this thing has going on, so it feels really out of place and just like, whoa, where'd that come from, buddy? Anyway, the electrical circuits banged into each other, deep inside the generator, and the actual flames burst out of it, flames that just came into existence are the hottest, and immediately I thrust the black slime into it. I felt pain, but honestly, I didn't care, because I'm super hardcore that way. Well, whatever. The thing felt even more pain. How do you know you're not the thing? The lifeless eyes bore into me, black into my brown. It tilted its head yet again, afraid of the fire, but still looking Lunch right in the eye. Why does this thing look like you? I mean, I'm sure people have asked this question by now. Why does this thing look like you? That doesn't make any goddamn sense. I stabbed that fucking generator as hard as I could as it transformed again, this time into one of the heads that occasionally flickered through its form. The flame now leapt in bounds, consuming me, as another tentacle zoomed towards me. I grabbed it with my blazing hands, laughing sadistically as it tried to wriggle free. This is a fucking train wreck of a story. Jesus fucking Christ. This time, I leapt towards it. It kept changing forms. It still kept those black eyes that were still lifeless as I pounded it, burning it and destroying it. Flames roared from the generator, incinerating the roof and allowing the torrent of rain to come in. The burning generator couldn't take the rain along with the damage it had done to it anymore, and we were consumed by the fiery explosion that ensued. So now I'm in the hospital for what the doctors joke as fourth-degree burns. Nothing was found in the destroyed house, so I assumed that the monster got away or was destroyed. Either way, as long as it's not here, I'm completely fine. So now I have this new nurse. She's a bit lifeless, and from what I can gather, incredibly hungry. So I think she wears a bit too much mascara, but she is awfully pretty with those black eyes. Dark blue anyway. What? Anyway, I'm done with this story. I have nothing else to say about this story. But this episode was brought to you by Princess Cadence. Princess Cadence, princess of selling princess toys to little girls.